American Horror Story TV series has been popular since its release. One thing the show likes to do is base its characters in the show on real-life people. The show can already be quite chilling with its disturbing storylines and characters, but did you know that not all of them are completely fiction? A lot of American Horror Story characters have actually been based on real-life people and some genuinely horrific deaths from the past. 10 American Horror Story characters that are very real. Tate Langdon's school shooting scene was inspired by the Columbine High School massacre. In 1999, teenagers Eric and Dylan murdered 12 students and one teacher and then committed suicide. Tate Langdon's character is based off of the two shooters, Eric and Dylan. When Eric and Dylan were in the library, they asked one of the students, hiding under a table, if she believed in God, before she was shot fatally. This is represented in the show somewhat during the shooting scene. Madame Delphine Lalaurie. The Countess Lalaurie was a high society Creole socialite in the early 1800s in New Orleans. She was known for taking great pleasure in torturing and abusing her slaves. She murdered one of her slaves' babies and used its blood in her beauty regimen. She would bind her slaves, torture them, and starve them. She was also known for being a collector of sorts. Her collection contained torture devices, many of which she used on her slaves. Her horrendous behavior wasn't exposed until, legend has it, her home was set afire by one of her slaves, a cook she had chained to the stove. When word got out, an angry mob congregated outside of the Lalaurie residence, and over the course of the night and the next morning systemically destroyed most of the residents. Madame Lalaurie wasn't the greatest of mothers either. She often beat her daughters if they were merciful to the slaves, and this is depicted in the show. Suffice to say, she was a sick woman. Her Royal Street mansion still stands and can be visited in New Orleans today, but is said to be haunted. The Axeman, an elegant blend of serial killer and jazz musician, was a real serial killer. He went on a killing spree between May 1918 and October 1919, and most of his victims were of Italian descent. He would break into the homes of New Orleans residents by going through the back door and would then slash them with an axe, and on one occasion, a straight razor. He killed 12 people and was never caught, even after penning a letter to the public. They have never caught me, and they never will. They have never seen me, or I am invisible, even as the ether that surrounds your earth. I am not a human being, but a spirit, and foul demon from hottest hell. I am what you Orleanians call the Axeman. In his letter, he said he would only spare the lives of residents who played jazz music because, bizarrely enough, he was a fan. The killings mysteriously stopped when a man by the name of Joseph Mumphrey, who had long been associated with the murders, was shot by the widow of his last known victim. A clown inspired by a clown. Twisty, featured in Freak Show, was inspired by killer John Wayne Gacy, appropriately nicknamed the Clown. Casey worked as Pogo the Clown in his job attending children's parties and charity events. Terrifyingly, he also secretly was luring teenage boys into his home to rape and murder them. Shockingly, between 1972 and 1978, he raped and killed at least 33 young men, burying a staggering 26 inside of the crawl space of his home. 3 were found elsewhere on his property. When his home was eventually overrun with corpses, he changed tactics and began dismembering and discarding his new victims, 4 in total, in the local river, the Des Plaines River. Casey eventually was caught and sentenced to 14 years in prison and underwent lethal injection in 1944. Eileen Wuornos. Lilling Rabe and Hotel acts as Eileen Wuornos, one of America's first female serial killers. Eileen was a cast at Devil's Night in Season 5 Hotel. You may be familiar with the notorious serial killer because of the critically acclaimed 2003 movie Monster. Wuornos, born February 29, 1956, killed and robbed a grand total of 7 men while working as a prostitute between 1989 and 1990, and was finally executed by lethal injection in 2002. The horrific abuse she experienced her entire life, beginning in childhood, leaves some to speculate if serial killers are born or are made. Lily quotes her childhood, what she was up against. "I'm not saying it would make anyone a serial killer, but I do feel a tremendous amount of compassion for her. I don't feel compassion for what she did. She is terrifying, but I also was heartbroken by her story." People lovers Miranda and Bridget Jane. The nurses in Roanoke are also based on real people. Miranda and Bridget are inspired by nurses Catherine Maywood and Gwendolyn Graham. Catherine, 26, and Gwendolyn, 25, worked at the Alpine Manor Nursing Home in Walker, Michigan from 1985 to 1988. According to the story, there were a total of 8 suspicious deaths at the nursing home. Unlike the pair in Roanoke, these two were never sisters. They were actually thought to be lovers. The murders were seen as some sort of ritual that tied into their intense romantic relationship. In the end, they did not vanish at all. They were caught, and each party tried to pin the deaths on the other. You gotta go out. Grab that. James March was an immaculately dressed and cold-blooded murderer who built his own hotel in order to hunt and torture and hide his victims. Marsh is thought to be based on H.H. Holmes, often referred to as America's first serial killer. In order to make sure things ran smoothly, he carried out the killings in a hotel of his own design, equipped with a network of gas chambers, incinerators, and body chutes. When the guests checked into his World's Fair hotel, he would promptly gas them, sending their bodies down through the tunnels into his underground lair. This is where he would personally chop them up before selling their organs and bones. He renovated a 3-story hotel with stairways to nowhere, a maze of over 100 rooms with no windows. It is believed he killed 200 people in it. He admitted to only 27 murders. While Mr. March is in direct portrayal, he certainly is inspired by the killer. Mina Suvari starred as Elizabeth Short in Murder House, and although the character's gruesome stories slightly changed for the show, Elizabeth Short was very much a real woman, better known as the Black Dahlia. Like on American Horror Story, she was an unknown actress looking for fame, but ironically only found it after being brutally murdered in 1947. Her body was chopped in half, and the sides of her mouth were sliced and curved up to give her a permanent smile, and her killer was never found. Although many performers in Treat Show had electrodactyl, in other words lobster claw syndrome, Grady Franklin Stiles Jr. is clearly a large influence for Jimmy Darling. Born in Pittsburgh 1937, Stiles was part of a whole family of people who had the condition. He was forced to become a sideshow act at a young age, and his stage name was Lobster Boy. His deformity was more extreme than Jimmy's, with his hands and feet shaping to form claw-like extremities. He married and fathered 4 children, and alas, much like the character in American Horror Story, dreamed of a normal life, which led him to becoming an abusive alcoholic. His strength, alcoholism, and violence led him to murder his daughter's fiancé, a man he did not approve of, in 1978. And then Grady himself was gunned down by a hired hitman, a 17-year-old hired by his wife in 1993. One of the most melancholy stories of human deformity is that of Edward Mordrake. He's said to have been the heir of a noble in the 19th century in England. He did, however, never claim the title. According to legend, he did have a face on the back of his head. He stated that it would whisper bad things to him at night. And legend says the face could whisper, laugh, or cry, and he repeatedly begged doctors to remove it. Unfortunately, he did commit suicide at the young age of 23. Statements where I beg and beseech you to crush it out of human semblance, even if I die for it.
Thank you so much for watching our video today. I hope you enjoyed this collection of very real American horror story characters. Please subscribe, and I hope you look forward to more videos like this. Thank you.